Let's get into congruent triangles. Now remember, congruent triangles are triangles that are congruent. All corresponding sides and corresponding angles are congruent. So what ultimately ends up happening, sorry, drinking my caffeine. Not that caffeine's a good thing. So corresponding sides and angles are congruent. So I'm going to look at this statement right here. This statement right here says the triangle CAT is congruent to triangle DOG. And as you can tell, we use very unique names here, cat and dog. I know, it's pretty creative. So triangle CAT is congruent to DOG. Then what is angle A congruent to? Well, let's match these up. I'm going to go ahead and match all these up in this first example, even though we don't have to, so you can see it. The way this is written, that means that angle C is congruent to angle D. Does everybody see that? Angle A has to be congruent to angle O, and angle T has to be congruent to angle G. So those are my congruent angle pairs. So now that I have my congruent angle pairs, I'm going to look at my congruent sides. So CA, side CA, has to be congruent to DO. Do y'all see that? AT has to be congruent to OG. Original gangsta. So AT and OG. And then CT, and I'm just writing a little arc, it's not an arc, I'm just connecting it, has to be congruent to DG. Do you see how the sequence matters on how you match these things up with these two congruent triangles? If I were to draw these two triangles, this is what would match up. If I actually drew the triangles out, here's triangle dog. We're from Texas, so we say it that way, dog. There's triangle dog, and here's triangle cat, meow. If I wanted to match these up, I have to follow protocol in the sequence. So C is congruent to D, right? So C and D would be the same. A and O would be the same. And T and G would be the same. Do you see how I matched them up? CA has to be the same as DO. AT has to be congruent to original gangsta. And CT has to be congruent to DG. So that's how you mark them up. So it says angle A would be congruent to which of the following? Well, let's look at angle A. That's this guy right here. How would I name angle A using 3 letters? There's 2 ways I could do it. I could call this, remember the vertex has to be in the middle. I could call this angle cat, or I could call it angle tack. That's the same angle. So which angle is the congruent to angle cat or tack? So let's look at what matches up over here. Well, A is congruent to O, right? So how do I name this angle? That's either going to be angle dog, or angle God. Everybody say a prayer. So we have angle dog and angle God. So it's going to be A. So that's how you match up the corresponding congruent sides. So let's look at number 30. On number 30 we have cat is congruent to red. Again, we really went overboard on these names. So, you know, I know it's really special that we have cat and red. If we had put them in the other order, it actually would say red cat. That's pretty deep. So anyway, I've got cat and red are congruent. So first of all, I'm going to mark everything I know. Angle C is congruent to angle R. Angle A is congruent to angle E. And angle T is congruent to angle D. So we know those guys measure up. Now I don't have to do the sides here because I'm looking for angles. So it says if the measure of angle D is 39, so this guy's 39, the measure of angle A is 44, what's the measure of angle R? This guy. Well, let's match up what we have. If D is 39, what else is 39? What is D congruent to? D is congruent to T. So that would be 39 also. If A is 44, what else is 44? Well, A is congruent to E, so this is 44. So to find R, we have to find the remaining angle of the triangle. What do the angles of a triangle add up to? Y'all are so smart. You're right, 180. So 39 plus 44 plus some mystery angle. We don't know what this is. We know these are going to be the same. It's going to give me 180. So 39 and 44, I have to think. That's 83 plus some angle is 180. I'm going to subtract 83 from both sides. So x is going to equal 97. So your answer is D. So this angle has to be 97, which means this angle is 97. And if you want to test your answer and make sure you got the right answer, what you would do is put the calculator actually in frame. You would do 44 plus 39 plus what did we find it was? 97. And what should we get? 180. Yay, we got it right. Okay. So that's how we work with the congruent triangle. So let's continue and finish up our congruent triangle journey here because y'all love congruent triangles. All my little Crayola markers are getting all over the place here. Okay, so let's look at this one. 31 says that triangle BCD is congruent to EFG. So let's mark them. B is congruent to E. C is congruent to F. And D is congruent to G. Okay, so that's my angles. Now let's mark the sides. So the sides, BC is congruent to EF. Do y'all see how I'm marking those based on the sequence of the congruent statement? CD is congruent to FG. And BD is congruent to EG. So now I know everything that matches up. So let's throw some measurements in there. It says that CD is 3x plus 8. So this side is 3x plus 8. FG is 4x plus 6. So that side's 4x plus 6. So it's asking what is the length, what is x, and the length of CD. Well, what do we know about CD and FG? CD has 2 marks and so does FG. Based on the congruent statement, CD and FG are the same. So I'm going to set them equal. So I know the length 3x plus 8 has to be equal to the length 4x plus 6. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to subtract. So I'm going to subtract the 3x from both sides. All I'm doing is my algebra. So I've got x plus 6. And then I'm going to subtract the 6 from both sides. And let's just keep using pretty colors. So I'm going to subtract the 6. So x is equal to 2. So x is going to equal 2. Now, I'm not done yet. I want to know what the actual angle, the lengths of the sides are. So let's take that 3x plus 8 and plug in 2. 3 times 2 plus 8 instead of x. 6 plus 8 is 14. And 4x plus 6, so 4 times 2. We're plugging it in, plug it in. One of Dale Stone Cipher's very favorite phrases. And I get 8 plus 6, which is 14. They are both the same length, so CD is 14. And notice I didn't put a segment symbol over CD. I'm talking about the actual length and distance, so we don't put segment symbols. Okay, so let's keep moving because that's what we want to do. All right, the next one says, true or false? If LMN is congruent to STU, then NML is congruent to UTS, okay? Well, LMN, all right, that means that angle L has to be congruent to angle S, right? Angle M has to be congruent to angle T. And angle N has to be congruent to angle U. So those 3 have to match up. And so I'm going to look and make sure they match up here. What should N match up with? U, right? Okay, check. What should M match up with? T, check. And what should L match up with? S, check. True, they're congruent. It matches up. Okay, same 2 triangles, just named it differently. So let's look at the next one. I've got EFG and NOP. So that means E has to be congruent to N. F has to be congruent to O. And G has to be congruent to P. So let's see if these guys match up. Is G congruent to O? No. So this is false. Those two congruent statements are not the same. Okay? We're in the home stretch here, boys and girls. All right, so let's go to number 34. This is going to be one of the longer videos. Let's go ahead and chunk this up.